Hello, YouTube, and welcome to what I assume will be the conclusion of the Beginner's Guide with a Therapist, Part 3. I'm so grateful that you have given me the opportunity to play this game for you and talk it through as we go through it. It's been a really cool experience to have, and I'm glad that we've done it. And I hope in some ways that whatever thoughts I've had have been meaningful to you in some kind of way, or if nothing else, you've just enjoyed another journey through this game. If you were blind, thanks for going through this blind with me. If you have played the game before, I hope maybe this playthrough added a little something for you. But it's been a lot of fun to play, and I'm really excited to see what comes next. Please leave a like, leave a comment, all that fun stuff. Check out the links in the description. Chapter 13, Mobius. Let's see what we got. Thank you, Magaria, for the 12 months. To play this game properly, you must keep your eyes closed. Click to begin the game. All right, I'll keep my eyes closed, and I'll even cover them so that you know that I have them. Hold on, what do I want to do? Okay, I cannot see. I'm going to click with my eyes closed. Use your hat. Oh yeah, there we go. Use your hat. Perfection. Here we go. I cannot see. I'm going to make sure my mouse is properly on the game. I guess it is. All right, here we go. Cannot see. Okay. Sounds like some crazy epic shit's happening. I really hope I'm not... Wait, what the hell? I don't have any kind of audio cue to tell me what to do. Wait, okay. I heard a crash.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
Well, wait a second. I'm gonna listen for a second. What do I hear? Okay, crash. Some sort of crash. I hear an alarm. I hear explosions. It's like am I like on some kind of ship? I can't see what I'm doing. Crash. Okay. So now, let's see if I click. Does anybody say anything? No. Can I move? Oh God, where is my keyboard? Hold on, find the... Oh God. Okay. Can I move? I hope I'm using the right movement keys. I have to believe this is just repeating itself over and over again. No audio cues. All right.
All right, let me explain how you're supposed to do this.
Oh,
Either
no!
side of the room are elevators, which go up to an upper level. You have to go up, walk over to the person who's standing there, and then select dialogue option number 2.
Oh, if I would have given it one more. All right, wait a second. What's going on? Something enormous just appeared on the radar. Oh, a giant door? I can't die like this. I can't die like this. I don't know why it happened to me too. There was a giant door and then my vision went black. You can't see anything either. Can't you do something? Can you fix this? No, I have no idea where we are. I can try. I need to find my supplies. Am I gonna be killed by a giant door? Oh God, okay. Yeah, although Davy's instructions wouldn't have been particularly helpful there. Help, I'm blind. So are all of us, apparently. Please, somebody talk to me. This game's missing some accessibility features. Be quiet and help me find the shields. Can we do anything? I can't die like this. I can't die like this. Why did I go blind? I can't see. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. This feels so epic. Dun, dun. Oh! Alright. The SS Whisper. Help, I can't see. Oh, this is like the same. Weren't we on the SS Whisper before? Wait, who's that guy up there? Go. Get in the elevator. Go. Go. The only way to stop is to speak to something that is honest. I am bursting with creative energy. I can't keep making these. My work is always fun. All right, let's go. Dun, 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 dun. The only way to stop it is to speak something that is honest. I'm bursting with creative energy. I can't keep making these. My work is always fun. I'm bursting with creative energy. No, that isn't truthful. Oh. So it's not about my experience. It's about the experience of the creator. Whatever this game wants it to be. Bum, 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 bum. Speak of something that is honest. I can't keep making these. Yes, that's it. That's the truth. I don't feel it anymore. I'm out of ideas. It's
like I
draining
said,
me.
I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way.
That's a delicate space to occupy. Coda, at the end of the day, is responsible for asking for help if he needs it. And that is true. Almost always. If you need help from the people around you, it is your responsibility to tell them. People cannot read your mind, and expecting them to read your mind is not fair. Expecting people to push through a boundary you set if you say, no, I'm fine, or I don't want support. If you say, no, I'm fine, or I don't want support, but you actually want people to give you support and you want to see if they're dedicated enough to push through that boundary, that's toxic shit. If you need help, you tell people that you need help, and you give them an opportunity to decide whether that's something that they can provide. Or something that they're willing to provide. If they're not, it's on them to tell you that they cannot or will not. If they are willing, then accept that help because you asked for it. But don't play games with reaching out, the need for support. It just makes everything more muddy than it already is. This idea that Coda was pushing away for the sake of maintaining distance. that doesn't necessarily mean that he wants Davy to crack through it. In line with what I just said, it very well could be that the reason that that Coda's deflecting is because he wants to figure it out on his own, or he doesn't want support. We see curiosity about Coda's experience, in my opinion, in the wrong lanes from Davy. We don't see a curiosity about Coda's actual experience. We see a curiosity about how Davy can attend to what Davy believes is going on for Coda. And that is indeed a disconnecting thing. That is not going to facilitate intimacy between the two of them. And it's really important to understand that. Curiosity about Coda in this case might be, what do you need from me, if anything? Or is it that you're trying to figure this out on your own? Curiosity about where he's coming from with his decision tree. Davy is wanting to know more about his friend, but it's not via asking questions. It's via asking self-rhetorical questions and making various assumptions about him. And then being curious about why Coda is either in alignment or not in alignment with the assumptions that he's making, which makes it again more about Davy than it is about Coda. Related to that, at what point do you decide that a person needs an intervention of some sort? That's not really for you to decide. I believe wholeheartedly that the only form, like the only thing that you're responsible for attending to is the way in which a person's behavior is affecting you specifically. So saying that this person needs an intervention may be if they're totally off the rails, but if that person is consistently rejecting help, despite your willingness to offer it, the limits of your responsibility for that are often more limited than people think. Like, you can start to set boundaries, be like, well, if you're going to get wasted all the time, you're not welcome in my house. Like, you control what you can control. Forcing that person into rehab, though, can be an effective means of help. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't strongly encourage or work hard to get the people they love into rehab if they're open to the idea. That's a more complicated issue than people like to believe. Like, at the end of the day, you can only control what you can control, and that's your boundaries and your response to the things that you see. You are as responsible for your own life as other people are for theirs. But staged interventions, no bueno. I hate that was ever even a thing on TV, because that just doesn't work. All that generally does is piss people off and not make them feel supported at all. Here we go. That's the truth. I'm out of ideas. It's draining me. It's draining me. Keep going. Keep talking. One thing that I will say about this moment here that I do not like is the idea that an external person is the evaluator of the player's truth. So when you're asked to give a honest answer and then it's an answer that the truth person doesn't like, it's somehow wrong. Not a big fan of that. It's like a more serious version of theater level for sure. If this person is asking for you to share the truth, and you know that you're sharing the truth, then the evaluator really at that point becomes in some ways inconsequential, because you know you're speaking the truth, and mostly people know whether they're telling the truth or not. I mean, I realize that you can't really have that kind of simulation fully in a video game, because the video game is bound by code and the way that it was created and all these sorts of things, but it's just sort of an interesting, like if you ever ask a person to speak their truth about something, and they do that, and then you question it. Not great. Anyway, I haven't been honest. I can't figure out how to say the thing. I thought it was going to be easy. You're doing it. It's working. I'm alone. I'm stuck in it. I have to work harder. I'm stuck in it. We're going to be okay.
His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
He seems to be so annoyed by how long it takes Coda to build games. Which, spare you the white screen for a second here. Again, is more about Davey. Like, Davey's not entitled to Coda making games. And if Davey is using this as the sole way to get to know his friend, and he's missing out on these games because he feels like he could get to know his friend more if he had them for whatever reason, like, it misses the point. There could be, if Coda's like depressed or not feeling it or stuck or whatever and wants to take some time away, or maybe take a little bit longer to put the games out because he wants to put more thought in them or whatever, that's perfectly okay for him to do. Davey's not entitled to games from his friend. So, like, you can hear that tinge of annoyance in Davey's voice about how long it takes. And some of it gets channeled into concern for his friend and his well-being. But the thing that, like, I don't hear in how Davey is presenting all of this is Davey saying, I specifically reached out to Coda and asked him what was going on. And here is how he responded to me. It's, I guessed and guessed and guessed and guessed until there was another game for me to look at. And now I'm trying to find the threads. And that bothers me. It's okay to reach out to people and ask how they're doing. It's like, that's perfectly fine. If a person responds and says, I don't really want to talk about it, then respect that boundary. But it's okay to reach out. It's okay to show some compassion, say, hey, I'm here if you want to talk. Or I noticed a disruption in this pattern I'm used to with you. I'm wondering what that means. Are you willing to talk to me about it? Like, these are all okay things to do. But we don't hear much about Davey's one-to-one interactions with Coda. Beyond when he said Coda asked him to help with the housekeeping game. At which point Davey evaluated him as being grossly positive or cheery or whatever it was. Hello? Where am I? What is this? Hello? Ooh. Where did this island come from? Is that a person? How lovely! It's been a long time since I talked to anyone. What's wrong? You look lost. Where are you? I am completely out of ideas. When I try to create, I feel empty. I have nothing left to give to my work. When I try to create, I feel empty. Oh no. What's happened? Did something change? There was a machine that kept me going and it stopped. I'm trying to find this engine that used to protect me, to start it again. There's a machine that kept me going and it stopped. Wait, you're looking for a machine? I think I know where it is. It isn't far. What? You have to take me to it. I need to see it to know why it stopped. What? I can take you to it, but there's a problem.
If the last game featured
guarded by a
Coda
difficult
talking
puzzle.
explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for?
Well, I view this very much in the same way that I talked about last episode, which is I see these potentially as being like a diary. Like you can write in your diary even when you feel like crap. But yeah, I'm right with you, chat. Ask him. Stop trying to make assumptions about him. Ask him. God, if there's nothing you take away from this game, my friends, communicate. For the love of God, communicate with your people. Be curious, ask questions, engage. Don't find these like weird, offhanded, out of nowhere ways to try to connect with people. Because you get too lost in your own bullshit when you do that. Allow people to speak for their own experience. It's guarded by a difficult puzzle. If you can help me solve the puzzle, we'll find the machine. Deal? I mean, Davey sees these games as a cry for help, but these games were never meant to be seen. And we don't totally know whether these games were released for Davey to play at the time that they were made. I don't get the sense necessarily that they were. We are reading Coda's diary. This very well could have been the thing that Coda made to help himself process what was going on. And then he threw it away. In the same way that you might write in your diary and then turn the page and never read it again. There can be utility in the presence of a thing. We are seeing the way potentially that a person was working through their thought process and their experience about their life and their creativity and all that stuff. And so Davey is like reading Coda's diary and then trying to extrapolate all these conclusions from it. And it begs the question, do all video games need to be played by other people in order to be valid? Could a person make video games for themselves for the sake of some utility that goes beyond just playing the game? I quite like that meta commentary or question that the game asks here. Is like, does this video game have to be played? Does this have to be enjoyed? Does this have to be an experience that other people have, or would it have been totally okay if nobody ever saw this and Coda just created it as a concrete representation of what's going on in his mind? The assumption that a video game is made for the masses is an assumption really that I don't see get challenged very often, in part because video games are released to the masses. But how many video game developers or people who know how to make games out there who have either played this game or watching this or whatever have made games that you never released to anybody just so that you could play around with stuff or work through a thought process or whatever? I mean, we're just seeing more of a personalized version of that, which is kind of cool, but also feels so intrusive. You know, and Davey's like, well, so what am I supposed to imagine being me, a friend, seeing your friend work through? It's like, imagine being a friend, reading your friend's diary and seeing that they're struggling and feeling some level of compulsion, like you're supposed to do something about it. When not, you might not need to. Coda may not be reaching out to you for very specific reasons. Anyway, deal or deal. It doesn't matter what I say, does it? We're going to end up right. We're going to end up there one way or another, right? Oh, I click 3 and it still gives me deal. That's really interesting. Okay. It's the video game version of if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a noise? If a video game's created and nobody's around to play it. Perfect. Come along, I'll show it to you.
Because from my perspective at the time and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
I completely disagree. I completely disagree. He may have been isolated, but it would seem to me that he's grounding himself in his games. This is an attention to one's inner psyche. I mean, that feels unfair to say that he wasn't grounding himself in anything. That somehow he needed to have connection to others in order to have some experience that he's not having. I mean, yes, humans are relational animals. Humans do have a tendency to thrive within meaningful relationships. But Coda sounds like he has a potential friend in Davy that's going to make a bunch of assumptions about him instead of be curious about his experience. I don't know that I want to open up to a person like that either. But this is Coda doing something, grounding himself. And if he wanted to reach out for help, he's the one that was responsible for reaching out for help. And maybe he did. Maybe he did, just not to Davy. We don't know. Hey, I recognize this. Oh, wonderful. Can you tell me how to do it? First, you have to open the door. First, you press the switch on the inside. First, you have to open the door. Okay, now what? Now you have to close the first door. Now you have to open the first door. Now you press the switch on the inside. Well, now you have to close the door and then walk through as it closes. That's what you need to do. Now you have to close the first door. Oh, this is interesting. So now it's doing the puzzle versus teaching somebody how to do it. You press the switch on the inside. We're still on the outside. Yeah, so you got to go inside. You press the switch on the inside. You have to open the door. Okay. Now hit the switch and then go through the door while it's closing. Now you press the switch on the inside. There isn't one. I don't see any switch here. Oh, God. In that case, close the first door. Oh, man. Now we're outside again. God damn it. All right, we're back outside. Man, the frustration with this when you only have 3 options to be able to convey this. Open the door. Oh, wait, do I? Okay. Now you have to close the first door. Oh, I see. Okay, so I could walk in here. Okay. All right, what's next? Okay, now just press the switch here. I thought we were like... No, whatever. Ha! That was so simple.
You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
What? He's not okay. His anxiety's going up. It is indeed true that if you put all of your worth into one thing, you absolutely run the risk of living and dying with that one thing. This is actually why I often make the point about external reassurance seeking. If you derive your self-worth from external reassurance and from what other people say about you, you will live and die on the limitations that others have in their ability to see the wholeness of who you are. If you derive all of your sense of worth and productivity in your art or your writing or your job, and that doesn't go particularly well, and you over personalize it, yeah, you will crash for sure. So he's not wrong about that. At the same time, the idea that you can't talk yourself out of loneliness is not entirely true. In fact, many people have a easier experience being alone when they get to know themselves more effectively and compassionately and become comfortable with sitting with who they are. If you are a cool person to hang out with for yourself, that can certainly help with loneliness, although the desire to have other people around is understandable. And sometimes the more comfortable you get with yourself and the more you like who you are, the more you might like to have that reinforced by other people, which is the good kind of reinforcement because there's a degree of confirmation of the self-worth that you've already generated. You can be alone and not lonely. You can also be surrounded by people and be lonely. Alone is a physical experience. Loneliness is an emotional experience. Can't believe I never solved it before this. It's okay. When I try to create, I feel empty. Where did this island come from? Hello, what deal? Hey, I recognize this. There was a machine that kept me going and it stopped. These are just words on some walls. Trust me, you'll see. Oh man, it sounds like somebody's crying. You have to say that your work is fun and easy. You have to say that game development is simple and joyous and that you love it 100% of the time. No, you don't. Yeah, there's somebody like crying and panicking. No, this would not be the way. Sure, making games is easy. Ah, that feels wonderful. Why did I feel so awful when I said that? Don't worry about it, just keep talking. Keep saying that creation is easy. When I make games, I feel completely energized. I'm constantly excited and enthusiastic about my work. It is easy, and it never stops being easy. Easy doesn't mean fulfilling. Yes, that's wonderful. Keep going.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering.
Again, I don't know that I agree with that. I really hate to make it sound like I'm consistently disagreeing with Davey because I'm not trying to polarize against Davey here, but Davey seems to have an outsider's skewed view of this. As a therapist, this feels to me like working shit out. Now, I don't agree that you would just want to consistently invalidate yourself and create narratives that are counter to your experience as a means to push through and do something that doesn't feel right for you. I mean, I'm not going to necessarily advocate for that, but I do believe that a change in narrative and a reframe can make a difference. What I find interesting is that the focus from this voice, this external voice, is the idea that in order to break through this, you have to view your skill. And for Coda, I don't think this is about skill. I don't think his sense of loss is because he doesn't think he's good at making video games or thinks it's difficult. It seems to me more that the creative drive is something that's a moving target for him. And he's having a hard time grasping that. Perhaps a hard time finding purpose or whatever. Well, yeah, that'll burn you out. If you have a hard time figuring out why you're doing what you're doing, that's a difficult experience to have. But this isn't really about skill. So injecting a narrative that making games is easy, I don't know that I like that. But at the end of the day, what Coda created here is a means for him to have his own internal dialogue represented concretely. And we were never meant to play this. This is like, yeah, it's like an artist who opens their sketchbook, which has all these like beautiful, elaborate designs, and then they sit there and just scratch and tear up the paper and throw ink on it and stuff. And then there's this like big mess of whatever. Like, is that any less meaningful than the other art in that sketchbook? Not necessarily. In fact, that might be the piece that ends up going for millions of dollars. But like, again, the reality here is that like we are watching a person work through their own stuff via a means that they know how to do that with. This is the language that he speaks well. In the same way that a musician might write songs that they never release, that are written completely for them, that an artist might draw things or make those scribbles that they do for them as a representation of their internal world. Or a person who writes a short story about their experience, but crumples up the paper, shreds it, and never releases it. Like, this is no different than that. It's just we have a different level of expectation on it because games are something that we see as to be played by the masses or to be experienced by others. And that doesn't have to be true. Every time I make something, I feel better about myself. I never stop creating, and you'll never feel bad. It's such a simple solution. I mean, yeah, none of these are particularly true, so maybe he's just making this to fight and see what it feels like to hear these things. Every time I make something, I feel better about myself. Perfect.
This is
That
someone
feels
I really
fantastic.
care about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me.
It's not about you! It's not about you, Davey. I can totally see why Coda doesn't want to open up to you. It's not about you. You're not entitled to his creativity. Seeing your friend in this myopic way, that's the kind of pressure that interpersonal relationships can put on people. The best of friends see the wholeness of a person. And he is still creating. He's just not creating in a way that you like. He's creating in a way that maybe stirs up some of your own anxiety, which is totally understandable. There may be people watching this playthrough right now, watching me go through this part going, God damn, this is making me anxious. Yeah, because we can empathize with it. It is relatable. How many of us have had these types of conversations internally where you're just fighting with yourself constantly because you feel some sort of block, or maybe your goals, you haven't achieved what goals you want to achieve, or you're in some kind of position you never thought you'd be in. I mean, this is the way that people fight through these things. And there's a low level of distress tolerance on Davey's part for that. I don't want to see him go through this. People have to experience adversity. You have to experience adversity, and you have to learn how to navigate it. You will get crushed by life if you don't do that. We experience our emotions relative to each other. Happiness isn't as fulfilling to experience if you've never experienced it relative to anything else. If you were perpetually happy, you would habituate to it. The ebbs and flows of the human experience are what make the presence of it more present. It's a weird way to say that, but like, it's okay to feel these things. It's okay to experience adversity and fight your way through it. And sometimes it's messy. The amount of times in my experience as a therapist where I have to say to people, like, it's okay to be messy. Just Talk your way through it. Don't worry about saying it the right way or doing it the right way. Just be messy with it. Develop through it. And we're watching that, and it's beautiful. And Coda is so stuck again in his own anxiety about this and seeing what he wants from his friend and perhaps empathizing with whatever struggles he's having. Maybe it's that Coda is able to represent these things better for himself than Davy is for himself. And so Davy's vicariously working out his own shit through his experience with his friends' things. Any number of things are possible here. But this is doing the work, man. This is awesome. None of this is helping. Patience. You have to trust me. I promise this will work. Please continue. Please continue the experiment. Psst. Any sacrifices made for my work are worth it 100% of the time. It always pays off eventually. Pain breezes effortlessly off me. Oh, God. Pays off eventually. Yes, more. Keep going.
I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it.
Oh, are you
I
Coda,
wanted it
Davy?
to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten.
Typical.
I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop.
Do you understand that you won't be happy till you love me? This is for you. Do you enjoy being a house cleaner? What happens if I solve it? No, I've been right here this entire time. I can't keep making these. To get out, all you have to do is be sincere. Someone talk to me. This is the key. How do I achieve it with no effort? Why do I feel so awful when I said that? Who are you? Where exactly are you doing this from? I'm thinking 10 times 12 recessed electric stitch-in soft LED ceiling lights with fluorescent trim. Yes, I did. That was literally the last thing I did before coming here. Why would I care about the space between the doors? I'm a vessel for certainty. I will be saved by my work. There is no shame, no fear, no guilt. I believe this unquestioningly. Incredible. That's it. I'm free. I'm free. Yeah, so Coda's Davy. He's doing some self-exploration. Oh, wow. Oh!
But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
The machine. Oh, here we are. We're at the machine. Okay, so Davey was talking about himself. Okay. I mean, I could see... At this point, if he ends up telling us that he's Coda, it wouldn't surprise me. But I'm going to go either way on this. And if he ends up being Coda, then I've got some stuff to say about that. Man, I'm glad to see you arrive safely. We've captured the machine. It's waiting for you now. You can begin interrogation whenever you like. I intend to be quick. I intend to be quiet. I intend to be brutal. I intend to be quick. Very good. Just be warned that some called the press, so we might have a bit of attention on this one. Also, one more thing that you should know about the machine. It calls itself Coda. Oh, baby. Do you know where the poisonous games have come from? What will you do with it? Oh, I want to read all these. Where's the machine now? Do you know where the poisonous games have come from? What can you tell us? Will we get answers? What was the machine for? Ma'am, please give us answers. What can you tell us? Have you got a minute? Will the machine answer for what it's done? Will we get to see the machine? Oh, man. Oh, baby, here it is.
And of course, it's the machine.
Great sound design. One, you stopped. You stopped feeding us. Your work was keeping us alive. Your work was keeping us healthy. You stopped feeding us. Who's us? People out here, can you imagine the pain you've put them through? It was only because of your creations that any of us could make it through every day. How could we possibly go back to trusting you to do this job? I don't want to guilt trip it. I mean, 2, I guess, is maybe a statement of fact. How could we possibly go back to trusting you to do this job? How about this for a start? You need to go to the people who are out there and apologize to them. You have to admit to the people that you allow them to suffer. I've been so alone. Let's open up to it. I've been so alone. You and I could work together. Apologize for leaving me. Nope. Demanding an apology is quite literally never going to get you what you want. Apologies should only happen if the person who is apologizing legitimately means it. Saying I'm sorry for the sake of saying I'm sorry, rather than actually putting any meaning behind it, really does nothing. And it kind of blows my mind how often people get so sucked into wanting to just hear those words, as if that makes all the difference. Only apologize if you're actually legitimately sorry for the impact that you've had on the person you're apologizing to. People are not entitled to apologies. You can certainly acknowledge the impact you've had, but you don't have to apologize necessarily if you don't agree with the premise of the apology itself. So asking somebody to apologize to you is not the way. Instead, you're better off stating the way that you've been impacted by somebody, whether it's their decisions or an event or whatever, letting them know the way that you were affected, and then perhaps you'll get some acknowledgement from them, or maybe an apology if there's something that they do feel sorry about. I don't like the demand for apology. No, nothing? Think carefully. I know how to hurt you. I've seen the thing you fear. No, nothing? All right, then. I will apologize to the people on your behalf. Ugh, gross. It's not sorry. My followers. Falls on me to deliver bad news. I have a troubling revelation. The machine will not apologize to us. The machine refuses to admit that it deliberately hurt us. Jesus, I'm not going to assume intent there. The machine will not apologize to us. But this is not important. We are stronger than it thinks we are. We will find a way to live without it. We do not need its games. Let's do that one. Let us pay it retribution. Let us show it that we are not failures. Follow me. We will destroy the machine. Follow me. We will destroy everything that the machine has created. I don't really like either of those. I want to destroy the machine itself. Let's destroy what it's created. Oh, wow. The catharsis.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that Code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation.
Maybe.
And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work?
I hate it. Absolutely hate it, Davey. That's not the way that you do it. The way that you do it is connect with your friend. Show him that you care. Talk to him about what it might be like. Listen to his fears. Listen to the reasons why he may not want to release it.
So I started showing Coda's work to people.
It's such a
Took this
violation,
one,
man.
And the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know,
Yeah.
the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
Put down your weapon. Dude. Davey. This, you know, I think what makes this so painful is people do this kind of stuff. They really do. And to an extent, I could make the argument that I have a career because of people doing stuff like this. At the time of filming this, I've been doing therapy for almost 12 years. And something that I have come to understand about the place that my career has in the lives of people is it is an opportunity for folks to have somebody engage them with genuine curiosity, without any kind of agenda, without all their personal shit getting in the way. It's talking to somebody who has some degree of expertise about the things that they're bringing in, for sure, but also somebody whose entire role and job, one that is ethically bound, is to show them curiosity, compassion, and get to know what's going on for them. Way, way, way too often, people will become afraid to share things with friends and family because friends and family or strangers get too wrapped up in their own shit to take a second and actually listen to what's going on for somebody. If I'm Coda, Davey is a nightmare acquaintance because Davey's not taking the time to get to know me. He's not asking questions. He's asking rhetorical questions to himself and to a wider audience, but he's not engaging with me. He's not giving me space to work through my anxiety, to talk it out, to be concrete with it. He's not taking his empathy for that experience and putting it to the side or engaging with it meaningfully so that he can be present for me as I work through what it means to be a creator who seems to have found a level of stuckness or pressure or whatever it may be that Coda's gone through. And the reality is, I still don't know what Coda's gone through entirely because all we've heard are Davey's hypothesis about it. Davey's not helping because Davey's made this about him. He's not made it about his friend. He thinks he's made it about his friend. He thinks he's acting in the best interests of his friend or his acquaintance or this person that he admires because he's doing what he believes would probably work for him. Or he's doing what he believes in a wider conceptual way would work for a human person. and he's missing the subjective experience of Coda. So to take his creations and put them out to the masses under the belief that he just needs to have external reassurance and validation, and that will make him feel better and will get him to start creating games, something that Coda seems to be tortured by, is selfish. And frustrating to bear witness to. So if you're a person, there's two types of people I'm going to talk to here directly. If you're a person who is struggling and you have found a means through which you can work your way through that struggle, do it. If that means journaling, if that means creating art, if that means talking to a therapist, if that means creating a video game, if that means talking to people, if that means writing a novel, or whatever, if that means playing a sport that you're interested in, picking up a new hobby, moving, whatever it is, cutting your hair. And that gives you an opportunity to meaningfully interact with yourself around your struggles and figure out where it is that you want to go and how you want to navigate them. Do it. And do it for you. Don't do it for other people. Don't do it because you think other people have to bear witness to it in order to make it valid. Do it because you know that that's right for you. And if you need extra support from the people around you, tell them or ask them. Make it clear. If you are a person who is watching somebody that you care for struggle, engage them with compassion and curiosity, not with judgment, not with assumption. Ask the best way that you can support them. Listen to what their answer is. Respect whatever boundaries they set. And more than anything else, work very hard to ensure that you don't make it about you and your desires. Make it about them. And if you're trying to help and they seem to become frustrated with you, don't do the whole, I'm just trying to be helpful bullshit. Ask yourself if perhaps you're not hitting the mark in terms of support. Or if your friend is asking for something or needs something from you that you cannot or will not do, set a boundary yourself. Say, that's not something that I can help you with, but I wish you the best in finding it for yourself. Do not do what Davey's doing. Now, well, let me finish this part, and then we're going to have a conversation about, because I really do want to know whether Davey is Coda. If they're two separate people, everything I've said throughout this playthrough stands. If they're the same person, I have a little bit of an extra thing that I want to add, but I don't know whether that's the case yet, so let's keep going. Okay, so I have the gun. Can't move. Can't turn. I have not hit the left mouse button. So if I hit the left mouse button, I'm guessing we're going to kill it. We're going to shoot the machine. Yep.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something, I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem.
Classic blunder. Which is a dynamic that I have to address in couples therapy almost every time. Which is that oftentimes we will try to help people and support them in the way that we like to be supported, rather than in the way they like to be supported. I have had this, I cannot even count how many times I've had this conversation in couples therapy with people. You are responding to your partner in the way that you would want to be responded to. But your partner's not you. They're a separate person. So you're putting distance between yourself and your partner because the way that you're attending to them is based on your own shit. So sure, Davey, you may love the idea that when you're creatively stuck, getting some external validation from the masses is going to push you through that hill. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to resolve your anxiety. It's going to motivate you. It's going to help you engage discipline. That's awesome. I'm not trying to take that away from Davey at all. But to force that on Coda because that's what works for him is to completely whiff. Because Coda may need something else entirely. And it's not your responsibility to try to figure that out necessarily for Coda. Coda's responsible for figuring that out. You can certainly ask him to give you more info on how you can support when he does. But this happens all the time in interpersonal relationships. And it is a dynamic to stay away from. It can be very helpful in the sense that, like, Davey could articulate to Coda, hey, when I'm struggling, I would love it if you released my shit to the masses because it would make a big difference for me to have external validation. That's perfectly okay. But to assume that that's what Coda needs, you do not ever want to make an assumption on how you can support somebody before asking them. At least you can admit it.
When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy.
For you.
So beautifully, beautifully happy.
Yeah, but how did Coda respond to that? Might have hated it.
So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made.
So this was specifically made, this was made for Davey then. This is a game that Coda wanted Davey to play. I would be interested to see what happens here. Epilepsy. Okay, so flashing light warning for those of you that might be sensitive to flashing lights. Thank you for the reminder, Isaac.
And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, the tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world.
Or from you. Or from you. So here's what I love. If we take into account the idea that Coda represents his thoughts, feelings, experiences with video games and uses them as a way to communicate with himself and potentially with others, then we want to potentially look at this as being a message that Coda is sending to Davey. And perhaps the message is landing, which is I feel distant from you, or I'd like to create more distance, or whatever. But this is a message to Davey. You've been wanting to get all sorts of communication from my games. You've been wanting to learn more about me through my games. Well, here's a game specifically made for you to send a message directly, for you to interpret.
This room actually has a maze in it.
Oh, shit.
Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise, so the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played, it actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
Don't play my games. Don't intrude. Very cool. But I modified it anyway. The cringe, right? It's a very clear message if you use this as the language of Coda. Alright, I will stop doing that. Wall 128.128. Literal, actual boundaries. Yep. Yeah, Davy's lack of self-awareness is horrifying.
And to be fair, it's not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. You know, that one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze?
Yeah. I mean, really no self-awareness here. He thinks he's being so altruistic in trying to understand his friend that he's completely lost the plot. Completely lost the plot. And yeah, I completely agree with you, everything, that like, we talked about this. My annoyance with Davey forcing us to play these games in the way that he wanted to play them. It is a constant boundary violation. It is a constant boundary violation. I put this maze in here to make this game unplayable, and instead of you stopping the game entirely, you keep modifying it in violation of the boundaries that I've set so that you can hopefully know more. It is an intrusion at this point. These aren't for you. My diary is not for you. It is for me. And you are doing everything you possibly can to open that diary and read those pages. And you think you know something about me because of those pages, when in reality you don't. All we've learned is what your assumptions are about me based on that information. You haven't learned anything about me. And what I'm learning about you, Davey, is that you don't respect my boundaries at all. That your interest in me somehow supersedes my boundaries and my desire to have distance from you. As I distance, all you do is pursue. I might put this big ass tower here that's really hard to get up into, and you're gonna do whatever you can to modify anything you can in order to get up there. Because it's all about you, not about me. You hide behind this idea that you care about me. All you care about is yourself. You're trying to resolve your own anxiety about the unknowns about what I am by using me as the proxy for it. That's what's happening. This feels gross. Coda is learning about Davey. Probably even more than Davey's learning about Coda. My friend, actually, yeah. You know what? Yeah. You know what he's learning? Beyond boundary violations, he's learning my friend won't take me as I am. My friend won't respect me. My friend wants me to be something I'm not, and I see that through the way he modifies my games. I create a game where you walk up the stairs really slowly, he speeds it up. I make a game where you're trapped in a jail cell for 60 minutes, he speeds it up. I make a game where there's a maze that you can't see the walls, he builds a bridge to go over it. I build a labyrinth in a space station, he zooms you ahead to the end. He doesn't respect who I am or what I create. He wants me to be somebody who makes games that are palatable for him. Why would you want to associate with that? You shouldn't associate with that. You should surround yourself with people who respect and admire who you are, not who they want you to be.
The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6-digit code. Like the invisible maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him, but I couldn't. I still don't really understand why this is here. I'll put the code on the ground for you here, though, so that we can move on.
He didn't want you to figure it out, bud. What's amazing to me is that he still did. He never turned around. He kept going. He never stopped. I'm gonna sit here for hours and hours and hours and hours and figure out this 6-digit code instead of just maybe get the hint that Coda doesn't want me in here. That's unbelievable. Coda makes games. Wait, no, not like this, right? It's do you respect the person and their decisions versus do you hold them to a standard of what you want? And Coda's fed up with it. Interestingly enough, though, he did make it, I guess, solvable in some way.
The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first 2 challenges and you got to this point, there's actually just no way to progress.
So I'll open the door for you
And
so we can
it's
keep
scary for
moving.
me, the idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem.
The most viral TikTok I ever released was about this point. As soon as you negate the support that a person needs from you and try to help them because it makes you anxious that they're not feeling better, you've made it about you. You've hijacked the moment. No longer is it about you supporting your friend. It's about you resolving your anxiety about your inability or their unwillingness or lack of desire to have you be the one that fixes it. Perhaps Coda wants to fight through this himself. He wants to figure it out on his own. He wants to sit in the prison of his mind and learn about it and figure out every detail of the prison so that he can find a way to get through it and get out of it so that he can experience the fulfillment of what it is to actually understand himself. And you keep barging your way through the wall like a modified Kool-Aid man trying to progress that process faster, which is making it about you. It's no longer about your desire to support Coda. It's your desire to have Coda feel better so you feel better. Not cool.
I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. But I can open this door for you, so let me do that.
I don't want you to. Dude, like at this point, like I'm ready to stop playing the game. Because I feel like I'm intruding further and further and further into the
Was I a
labyrinth.
failure for not understanding this game?
You're a failure for...
I don't know why I would be. It's not like everything needs to have a solution, but I feel it somehow.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I feel
man.
like I failed, and I don't understand why.
Okay, so we're going to look at this door for a second as a metaphor for something. The door can be opened, but it has to be opened from the inside, which suggests to me that this is a door that should only be opened when Coda decides that it's time to open the door. If Coda is on the other side of this door, he can decide when to hit the switch in order to invite Davy in. Perhaps because Davy needs to do some real work in order for him to feel comfortable bringing him in. Davy needs to do a shitload of self-reflection. Rather than brute forcing those things, he needs to figure out what it is about him that makes it hard to open up to him. And when he does that and sits in this room, Coda will pop that open and invite him in.
I remember. It's June of 2011. I'm playing this for the very first time. And as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person.
Correct.
I have no idea who this person is.
Correct.
It wasn't the guy I knew. It wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them...
Go on. Go on. Finish that thought. Come on, Davey. Finish the thought, buddy. Come on! That perhaps you've learned more about yourself in the process at the expense of your friend. Come on!
I had been trying to, though. That was the thing. For years, I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean. And he wouldn't.
And he didn't want to. And you decide what you want to do with that info. But barging through his life and extrapolating all this information when he clearly doesn't want you to know isn't the way. Walk away. Because here's the reality of the situation too. If Davey's not getting from Coda what he wants, he also can walk away. Davey doesn't have to stick around. He doesn't have to continue to engage with Coda and figure out how to be his friend. If Davey needs friends that are open and self-reflective and answer his questions, then go find people who do that, rather than trying to mold Coda into what you want him to be. That's something that you really learn later on in life, is find people who already align with you instead of trying to mold them into whatever it is that you want. They're both perfectly capable of disengaging from the other one. Those 3 dots may just be an asset that made it easier for him to do his thing, like in Minecraft.
I just felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and for all happy.
Yikes. Nope.
It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me.
Yeah, so trying to discover
But
Coda...
he stopped and left. And it felt somehow like I had failed.
Yeah. Using other people as a proxy to learn more about yourself or become them is not the way. Now, I would say to Davey that if you could use this experience to learn more about yourself in the form of assumptions that you make about other people and desires you have about them, then that's perfectly okay. You know, if you learn from this, like, okay, I break boundaries, I over pursue, I don't listen, I make my anxiety the problem of other people. That's all great things to learn about yourself and figure out what you want to do with it.
Where did I screw up?
When you didn't engage your friend with curiosity in a way that would have been meaningful. Dear Davey. Yes! Thank you for your interest in my games. I need to ask you not to speak to me anymore. Yep. Yeah, you had to brute force your way up here. Here's your message, bud. Beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a clear boundary. Amazing. I need to ask you to not speak to me anymore.
I'm the reason that you stopped making games, aren't I? It's because of what I did. I poisoned it for you.
What did we learn? I wonder at times.
I don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable.
I wonder at times whether you think I'm making these games for you. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. You've so infected my personal space that it's impossible, or that it's possible I did begin to plant solutions in my work somewhere hidden between games. If there was an answer, a meaning, would it make you any happier?
The people who played them, they treated me like I was important. They really listened and cared about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, I felt good about myself. Finally, for a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
Yeah. Davey, step into my office, bud. We got some work to do. Would you stop taking my games and showing them to people against my wishes? Giving them something that is not yours to give? Violating the one boundary that keeps me safe? God, this is really good. Would you stop changing my games? Stop adding lampposts to them?
And then you stopped, and I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What does that mean?
Means that you have to figure out where that desire is coming from, what that facilitates for you, and how to make it happen for yourself organically and on your own without using other people as proxies through which to facilitate that desire to be loved and adored. I mean, this goes back into either part 1 or 2, where I was talking about how we experience Davey as an authority on Coda's experience. And now we're hearing Davey acknowledge that that is what he wants. He wants us to look at him as an expert on Coda's experience. And I'm guessing that he's doing that to avoid his own anxieties. I don't know how to derive a sense of self-worth, so I work for external validation via people thinking I'm an expert on something that seems to be inaccessible to them. I mean, we literally, I hate that I was right about that, but this is absolutely what I was talking about back in part 1 or 2. Would you simply let them be what they are? When I am around you, I feel physically ill. You desperately need something and I cannot give it to you. I literally do not have it. This is some real talk. Struggling to come up with new ideas is not making me depressed. Low points are just a part of this process. The fact that you think I'm frustrated or broken says more about you than about me. I realize that this doesn't make sense to you just yet, which is fine. You're not my problem to solve. God, this is so good. But I do hope that one day it clicks and that you make peace with this thing that you're wrestling.
I'm afraid that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself.
You did. And when you finally see what I'm talking about, don't say anything. Dude, that is... Coda knows you better than you know him. Because when you find out what's going on, when you figure it out, you're going to want everybody to know that you are the expert on your own experience. And that only puts you back into the same problematic process you had to begin with. When you realize what's going on, when you have this level of self-actualization, these realizations about yourself, and you really dig in and do the work, keep it to yourself. That's some powerful shit, man. Oh, there's no lever on the other side.
That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work, is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you.
Oh, no.
I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again?
Oh my
Please,
God.
I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean, is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work, but I can't stop myself from doing it. That's
Yes,
how
you can.
badly I need to feel something again, like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just...
Oh, is this frustrating? Yeah. Yeah. But it's also very sad. This is a very vulnerable moment for Davey. Very, very vulnerable. Davey, through whatever experiences he's had up until this point in his life, has relied on external validation and reassurance. And this is, in the most concrete way that I've seen it in any video game, the representation of how that destroys people. It is why I am so adamant always that when you're anxious, when you are insecure about something, it is on you to find the ways to build yourself up, to dig deep, counter your narratives yourself, find your own voice. Because if you rely on external validation, and if you do it pointedly through one specific person or through the masses or whatnot, it's going to ring hollow. You're going to become so obsessed with reinforcing your worth through others that you're going to lose yourself entirely. It's a horrible trap to be in. And when you start using language like, I can't get out of it, I can't stop, one, you're wrong. Because yes, you can. And two, that's really when you have to start digging deep. But it's going to take work to get out of this. Your desire to have Coda validate your apology means you have not made any progress as it relates to the actual process that is your downfall. So when Coda wrote on that door, don't say anything when you figure it out, that's what he was talking about. And instead of Davey really taking that in, doing the hard work, building the stress tolerance, recognizing when I'm sorry and I never am going to get to tell him that because he set a boundary, and I have to know that I recognize my own contrition around that, and that's good enough. I don't need Coda to hear me apologize to know that I'm sorry. That's the win. As soon as he says, I'm going to go hijack your work and send it to the masses in the hopes that you play it so that you hear me say I'm sorry, he's made no progress. And that's the kind of thing that I, as a therapist, have to intercept. It's really a bummer to watch. It really is. It's hard to witness this. But that panic's real, man. So many people have been there. It's real. It's real. This requires some really, really hard work. And my hope would be that Davey would find himself a therapist who can really hold him accountable to doing that work if he wants to have any kind of meaningful relationships in his life. Because otherwise he's going to have relationships that serve the purpose of reinforcing his worth, not relationships where he's acknowledging people for who they are and appreciating it and appreciating who he is relative to it.
Tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
He did tell you what
Please,
he wants.
Start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. I want whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing and you put into your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. I want to know I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay.
You will be if you do the work. But he did tell you what he wanted, to be left alone. Really powerful stuff, man.
More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease.
Except it isn't. Very important for Davy to understand that. It can feel that way. It can feel like a pathogen, but it's something that Davy actively participates in. And I don't say that to victim blame him. I say that because understanding that can empower him to make the changes he needs to make in order to work through that. You're an active participant in your own misery here, Davy. And that's harsh feedback. But until he comes to terms with that, and he continues to see these things as like this is some sort of external affliction that he has. And it's not. The desire can feel really strong, yes. There's probably all sorts of reasons why he has this really strong desire for the validation that he's looking for, but at the end of the day, that is something that he can work through and manage more effectively and will not have a hold on him. He will be okay, like I said, if he does the work. And that work, I'm sure there are some of you that are watching this that are wanting to know, well, Dr. Mick, what is that work? It's very hard for me to say without having Davy in front of me, because I would need to do a big, long assessment on where this comes from. We've identified that it's a bit of a problem. We've seen some of the processes that happen in some of the behavioral choices he makes that are problematic. But I need an assessment around more of the context of where this comes from in order to really help him navigate these things differently. I mean, one quick behavioral change would be respect boundaries. Coda told you not to talk to him. End of story. And you're going to have to build the distress tolerance around that. You're also going to be looking at expectations you have of other people and yourself.
Solution. I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons.
Yeah. And it's also not his fault that you did what you did. Can't blame him for that. You don't get to blame Coda for your lack of curiosity or lack of willingness to engage with him directly, or for your unwillingness to respect his boundaries. That's not on Coda. Yeah, you jump to conclusions. You engaged with your own projections.
The disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Oh, now we're doing this, huh? Right, so he's still doing this. He wants people to bear witness now to his contrition. Look, the reality of this is the only way that we would have known that Davy did the work is if Davy never released this game at all. Is if we never played it. That's the way that we would know that Davy did the work. And that means that we would never know that Davy did the work, which means that Davy would never get the external reinforcement that he's desiring around the fact that he did the work. He thinks he did the work, but he didn't do the work because he released the game to show that he did the work. The only way is if he never released this at all. Contrition is like kind of like repentance or making good on it or showing that you're sorry. How often do you see this paradoxical kind of looping set of behaviors? A lot. It's hard to change, even if you want to do it.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be?
Internal validation.
It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable.
Which is part of the problem. One of the first steps to change is considering that change is possible. One of the first steps to seeing a goal as achievable is bringing yourself to acknowledge that the goal may actually be out there to achieve. So if he sticks into this idea that external validation not being the way that he derives his self-worth is impossible or unthinkable, then he's already stymieing himself. You have to open yourself, like literally the first step on this would be to get Davey into a position where he acknowledges that you don't have to rely on external validation, that instead you actually could build your own self-worth. You could validate yourself.
Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like.
Oh, we know. We know. It's time that you change that, though, bud. And you could do that at any point in time. You could reconsider that anytime you want. You know, it's a content creator who makes awesome content and doesn't get views and asks himself, is the content I make good enough when nobody's watching it?
I think I need to go. And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do.
You do.
I have a lot that I need to make up for, and so I'm just gonna...
Good.
Okay.
Good. Dave, you were to submit this to a therapist instead of the public, do you think that would be a sign of growth? I think that would be a lot more healthy than submitting it to the public, because we could talk through it in a meaningful way. I still wouldn't love it, but it would be something where I'd be like, I'm glad you didn't release this to the public and you're doing it for a point of self-reflection. What a great experience. As painful as it is. Ha! Back into the thing. I wonder if we float up out of the world. Or does it kill us and we go to the title screen? Oh, okay. Wow. Look at that. How cool is that? No solution in sight. No way to modify your way through it. You've got to fight. You have to figure it out on your own.
Turn back.
I don't want to get claimed, so. That's probably not the right song to use, though. That was awesome. What a cool experience. Thank you for making the journey with me. I really hope that my analysis and thoughts were meaningful to you in some way. I want to just give a quick shout out to everybody who's on the screen in terms of watching the credits. Like, what a really neat way to explore themes like this. I appreciate immensely what this game had to offer, and it was a pleasure to play it. I would love to have a conversation with one of the developers of it in terms of what their thought process was on why they created it the way they did and what they were trying to convey and all these things. But what a cool, I mean, this was awesome. So thanks for making it all the way to the end. If you've left comments along the way, I hope you'll continue to do so. I love reading them. It really asks a lot of cool questions about the nature of what our expectations are for people. What happens when those people don't meet our expectations? Is that the fault of the person not meeting our expectations, or is it the fault of us creating those expectations? How to engage with people for what they are versus what you hope they are. Finding an appreciation of what it is that they do offer instead of what you hope that they could possibly offer. Not making things about yourself when you're trying to fill in the blanks of unknowns about others. I mean, on and on and on. But this has really been neat to go through this, and I'm really glad we did it. So, thanks for your continued support of all of my videos and playthroughs. It's cool that so many of you care about what I have to say about these things. So, I also really like that Coda's not Steve or Davey. Jesus, I like that Coda's not Davey. I think it's cool that we actually got to see some really healthy boundaries enforced. And that's the way you do it, by the way. Stanley on your mind. What if it was? What were your thoughts about that? Just that, like, your internal work to figure out who you are doesn't have to be so harsh. Really awesome stuff. Check out my other playthroughs. Would love to hear your thoughts about those as well. I am grateful to all of you, and I hope you'll check out my other playthroughs. I'll see you on the next run. You matter.